to Stories with Brisco and Bradshaw. I would be Bradshaw, and that would be the WWE Hall of Famer, Oklahoma's favorite son, Mr. Gerald Brisco. And what a treat we have today. His stats read like something out of a video game. 12-time Major League Baseball All-Star, 8-time Silver Slugger Award, 5-time batting champ, and get who he's in company with for the 4 straight batting championships. Ty Cobb, Roger Hornsby, Rod Carew, and Tony Gwynn. And he stole a horse in New York one time in front of millions of people and got away with it. He is our friend, the legendary, the best hitter of my lifetime, Mr. Wade Boggs. Wade, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. How we doing? It's great to be here.
Hey, Wade, man, it's great to have you on, man. Yeah, you and I met years and years ago, man. I was telling John some of the stories. We met in Atlanta one time. I think both of us missed our flight, our connection. after
right, exactly. Yeah, Jerry, we go way back. We go back to the Armory days when you and Jack used to wrestle against the Funk Brothers. And those are some of the greatest times that I've ever had growing up here in Tampa. Gordon Soley and oh my God, Pac Song and Dusty Rhodes and Bobby Shane and I could just go on and on with the amount of talent that came through Tampa Bay. And you and Jack were the premier guys here in Tampa. That's for darn sure. You were wrestling as far as Tampa was concerned.
Well, the Wade Boggs of wrestling for Tampa. Wade, thanks for those compliments. Yeah, man, it's quite an experience. I know you came from a military family and traveled around a lot. Was Tampa really your first taste of professional wrestling when you first became a fan?
Yeah, we moved down to Tampa in '69 and started going to the Armory probably in '71. And every Tuesday night, it was something to behold. I mean, it was we'd work our way down for the ringside seats and all of that, and especially when Terry and Dory Funk would come walking out of the thing and they'd spit on you and throw stuff at you, and the older ladies behind us would throw stuff at them, so we'd just get Cokes and all kinds of stuff thrown at us and hot dogs. And I'd go home with mustard and Coke on me. And my parents they didn't know what they said, where in the heck you been, in a food fight? And I said, well, no, I went to wrestling. And we called it wrestling back then, but it was, I tell you what, it made my Tuesday nights. It really did.
Was you around when Dusty Rhodes turned American Dream on us?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Those were, when he walked out and started prancing and walking around, and Bobby Shane would come out with his girls and yeah, it was something to behold when Dusty started the American Dream.
Sure. Well, you mentioned a name there that, out of the past, and, he left us much too soon through the air crash with Buddy Cope there. But what a fantastic talent, and what, on the inside as a mind, Bobby Shane was probably one of the best in-ring performers there was. And Wade, backstage, he was one of the brightest guys that there was in the business too, at putting matches together and creating angles and all that stuff.
Yeah, that was something, because I grew up on Davis Island, and he crashed right off of Peter O'Knight there in Davis Island. And Buddy Colt, I think, was with him, and there were a couple other guys on board.
Gary Hart. Yeah.
Gary Hart was on board, but Bobby was the only one that passed away during that crash into the bay. And he was sort of the pre, if you would, with the girls and all the flair that he had, and like when Ric Flair adopted all the woo and the bolos and whatever he would wear with the feathers and all of that, and the strutting and the Rolex wearing and the Gucci wearing, stuff like that. But Bobby Shane, he was definitely ahead of his time.
He was, and we found out something through this show, right, John, about Bobby Shane and the crown that he had. You know, the crown that Jerry Lawler ended up with was Bobby Shane's crown.
I'll be darned.
And Jerry got it. Bobby had loaned it to him because Jerry was doing a photo shoot, and they were calling him the king, and he didn't have a crown. And Bobby was headed off to where, Australia, wasn't it, John?
Australia, yeah.
And so Bobby said, "Here, I'll loan you my crown. When I come back, I'm going to Florida, so I'll need it." And so he went down to Australia, and he didn't have time to go back to Memphis. He come straight to Florida, and he was killed in the airplane crash.
Right.
And so that's how Jerry got that crown. It's a prized possession here, Jeff. But what a great talent, and we're all privileged to see somebody like that. But the genius of Eddie Graham, I mean, and Gordon Soley, you mentioned the Gordon Soley. Wow.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of going to lunch with Jack and Gordon, and just before Gordon had passed away. I think it was probably 2 or 3 months before Gordon had passed away, and got together with like I said, Jack and a few other guys at Malio's here on Kennedy, and just had. I think the lunch lasted probably 4 hours of all the stories and the crimson mass that Gordon Soley coined, and I mean I can still close my eyes and hear him talking nowadays, and he was just an absolute treat. He actually, Gordon was the Vince Scully of wrestling.
Yeah,
and Gordon was so wonderful, and Brian Blair was there, and Steve Kern, and it was one of those luncheons that you wish somebody had videotaped it, because it was that good. And just listening to stories, and especially with my childhood growing up here in Tampa, and then getting involved with the WWE and with the guys down the road, and especially with John, and when we'd go hunting in Alabama, and we'd have probably 5 or 6 wrestlers there. And I tell you, when you have celebrities and kids are involved with various activities that we had in Alabama, John will be attest to this. Boy, when the wrestlers come out, those kids absolutely go bonkers. And it was so neat, because we had the Steiner brothers there. We had John, and we had Big Boss Man, and we had Kurt Hennig, and we just had an absolute hoot, and just practical joke after practical joke. That was one of the things that because Jerry, you know as well as John, that your industry, they cornered the market on practical jokes, and us baseball players showed them a few of our own. So, yeah, it was one practical joke after another, and Jeff Foxworthy sort of got caught up in the whole tornado of all of these practical jokes, and that was a hoot story.
Boggs, I understand now.
That was a hoot story, I'm telling you.
Jeff Foxworthy walked into the bar at one point, and he was such a good sport, by the way, and he was on fire back then. He was probably the hottest comedian in the country at the time. And he walked in, he put his wallet on the bar, and he said, "I can't whip anybody in here, but if somebody will beat up Wade Boggs and Kurt Hennig, you can have whatever's in my wallet." It was so funny.
What happened, though? I mean, the guy, John's told me the story several times, and I laughed my ass off every time. So what exactly happened?
Well,
he shot it here and missed it, or
it was one of those. It was one of those. We had to go up by Selma to stay at Jimmy Hinton's the Sedgefields, and they had cabins and various things. So there was a 3-bedroom cabin there for me and Perfect and Jeff Foxworthy. And Perfect had just come off of some knee surgery, so he was icing his knee and everything. And after the hunt, climbing down out of the tree stand. So we're sitting in the living room, and Kurt goes over to the refrigerator and gets a baggie and starts filling it up with ice. And I said, "What in the hell are you doing?" And he says, "Oh, I'm going to ice my knee." I said, "Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?" I said, "Oh, does her knee hurt?" And so I'm going like this. So I'm saying, "Hey, we can get Foxworthy. Why don't we just pretend that a battle royal starts, and we'll just act like you're mad at me, I'm mad at you, and let's see how far it goes." Well, it went a little too far. we started breaking plates over each other, and he chest slapped me, and Kurt had the best chest slap on the planet. Yeah. And he'd knock me into next week, and I'd chest slam him, and Foxworthy was just absolutely going bonkers. He said, "Would you guys please stop?" He says, "I don't have a lot of money, but I'll give you anything just to stop." And we just kept going, and he went back to his room and locked the door. Well, Kurt threw me through his door. So I go flying into his room, land on the bed. Kurt picks up a Scrabble game and hits me overhead with his Scrabble game. Now I look over at Foxworthy, and he's got an X, a Q, a R, and an I stuck on his face. So I'm sitting there laughing so dadgum hard that we both look at Foxworthy and go, "We got you." So the next night was the banquet, and Foxworthy he says, "You might be a redneck if you go hunting with Boggs and Perfect and a battle royal breaks out." And he was telling all of these redneck jokes, and every one of them had something to do with me and Perfect. And it was just one of those moments that just escalated and escalated. And Foxworthy was caught in this whole tornado of a storm. And so we went back the next year, and Foxworthy was there again. So, well, he was staying at the lodge this time. We didn't have to go to Sedgefields or anything like that. He was staying at the lodge. So about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, Perfect picks his lock on his door and fire extinguishers him. Remember that, John?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And Foxworthy comes out, and he looks like the Marshmallow Man. He's all white. He's got the fire extinguisher all over him. His room you can't see in his room because of the fire extinguisher went off. And Foxworthy comes out and says, "If I can find a gun, I'm going to shoot Boggs and him." and everybody goes, "Hide your guns, hide your guns. Foxworthy's on the loose." And people started waking up, and they'd open their door and look at Foxworthy, and he's just this white ghost walking up and down the hallways. But we just tore into him, and it was just so much fun, and everybody got a big hoot out of it.
Hey, Jerry, you got to understand, there was Aaron Tippin was there, John Anderson, Chipper Jones was there one year, all the wrestlers. I mean, one of the Mandrell sisters. The stories in the bar were legendary. I mean, it was a really good time. And at one point, Foxworthy had a deer end up in his bed, didn't he?
Oh yeah. We took the deer heads off the wall.
Oh yeah.
We took the deer heads off the wall and filled up his room with all the deer heads. So, and then we locked the door from the outside. And then in the morning, he's trying to open the door. Well, the guy that owned the lodge comes out and he goes, "Where in the heck's all the deer heads?" I said, "I don't know. I think Foxworthy's trying to steal them." So he goes and opens up Foxworthy's door, and there's probably 10 or 12 deer heads in his room. And
hey, Jerry, and one of the best parts was, Foxworthy was the hottest guy in the country at the time. He was on fire. And so they gave him like the prime locations and stuff, every time he had shot a deer and he couldn't find it. It was right at night. There was a little bit of rain, had dogs. They're trying to, but I don't think they ever found it. So when he comes back, all those dead bucks are in his room. And one of them had a note on it, said, "If you're looking for a dead buck, that's what it looks like." That was from Kirk. That's when Foxworthy walked into the bar and put his wallet on the bar and said, "I'll give whatever's in my wallet for somebody to beat up Wade Boggs and Kurt Hennig."
Okay.
We had so much fun.
Kurt was the master ribber in our business. Did you guys have one on the Sox or the Yankees? Was there a guy that stood out like Perfect was ribbon and baseball? Or was you the guy?
Well, I was pretty good at it. I mean,
everybody that makes comparisons there compared to
I can do that. What's that, Jerry?
I said in our business, everybody's compared to Kurt. So in baseball, everybody the ribbers are all compared to Wade, right?
Well, I could
no
hold my own.
So hold my own, your brother, man.
I tell you what, there were some characters as far as practical jokes go, and see, the thing about it in our business was a practical joke will get somebody upset at you, because, you know, if you start touching people's equipment and, you know, you're touching people's bats and gloves and stuff like this. So it was one of ours. We were in Yankee camp in 90, I believe it was 97. We were in Yankee camp and spring training, and David Cohn and Jimmy Key, they were practical jokers too as well. So I got a shipment of my Nike shoes, but I was on the road at a game and came back and found out that my Nike shoes had arrived, and I was all happy and opened up my Nike shoes, and someone had relieved themselves with number 2 in my shoes. So I'm sitting there and I know who it is. And so it was either going to be Jimmy Key or David Cohn, and I was going to get, it didn't matter because I was going to get them all back.
We'll get them all.
So I would have got the right guy. I was going to get them all back. Well, they sort of let me know who it was, and I got a pass key to their hotel room and left one in the middle of their bed. So when you get into your bed and there's something in there, it's like, okay, here we go.
That sounds like a wrestler story, man.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, you don't mess with people's shoes. That's basically where I was going. Don't mess with my shoes.
And you're known as one of the most superstitious ball players of all time, too, correct?
Well, the thing about it is I'm the only guy in the Baseball Hall of Fame that has superstitious on his plaque. So I guess I won that notoriety right there. That I probably, when I was playing, had in the upwards of close to 80, 85 superstitions that I went through during the course of a day. And everyone knows the chicken one naturally. That's where you have to have chicken before every game. But yeah, it was OCD on steroids. That was one of the big things.
And you arrived at the same time and all that. Was that part of your?
Well, yeah, it was the running at the same time, step over the line, going out, step on the line, coming in. I draw the Chi sign, I throw the 3 rocks over the line. And it was just like, get dressed at the same time, take your ground balls at the same time. And everything's sort of time oriented. That's sort of getting back to the military upbringing that, you know, you eat at 5 o'clock, and if you're late for dinner, it's in the garbage. Yeah. And that's how you're brought up in the military, is that things are, you know, you'd get up at 7 o'clock at 0700 and get ready for school, and you catch the bus at a certain time, and you're home at a certain time, and dinner's at a certain time. So it just sort of made the day flow a lot easier if everything was sort of time oriented, and just sort of just puts the blinders on a little bit and just everything, rather than, I never figured out how guys get on a bus at 5:15, get to the yard and get dressed in 10 minutes and then go out and get ready for batting practice. I've never figured that out. I mean, I get to the yard probably 12:30, 1 o'clock for a night game, and just my whole day just gradually evolves into the culmination of starting the game. So that was more or less the time oriented part of all the superstitions.
Well, damn, superstitions. 3,010 hits later. You know?
Well, yeah, it worked.
Yeah, I was just reading. I'm sure you know this. You're 33rd on the all-time batting average list, but you're number 1 of people that are alive. So you're the greatest hitter alive right now.
Yeah, I'm the greatest show on earth that's alive.
That's right.
Yeah, I have the highest batting average of any Hall of Famer that's alive. So hopefully I can continue to hold that down for about another 30, 35 years. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, it's a great honor. You know, a lot of great hitters have passed away. Tony Gwynn, unfortunately, 8 or 10 years back, had passed away. But he was 1, I was 2, and then when Tony passed, I became 1. But hopefully it's not a red herring to where you just keep passing that torch around.
It's like the oldest person in the world. They always die. You know,
Yeah, that's it.
you read the headline.
Yeah, it's inevitable. It's inevitable.
114-year-old lady in Sri Lanka dies.
No,
Oldest
here.
person- Yeah,
Well,
but
you know, that brings up a great segue for the other Kurt Hennig story that I do have, and I've always referred to Kurt as my guardian angel. And we were deer hunting in Iowa, and the guy that ran the farm said, "You want to split up, or you guys want to walk together?" And I said, "Well, I haven't seen Kurt in 6 months, a year, or what have you." I said, "We'll just walk together, and if we flush something up, then we'll take a chance of shooting it. We don't have to split up and then rendezvous back at the truck or anything like that." So we probably walked 3-4 miles, and we walked along this fence row and came up to this barbed wire, and we needed to cross the barbed wire, and I said, "Hey, hold my gun, I'll go first." So I stepped on the barbed wire, grabbed the tree on the other side of the barbed wire. Well, the tree broke and didn't know it was rotten, and I got tangled up in the barbed wire, and I had it completely wrapped up over my legs, and I had fallen and separated my shoulder, and I'm laying on the ground upside down, and I feel something really warm running down my leg towards my waist because I'm upside down. And I said, "Kurt, I think I'm bleeding." He gets on this barbed wire, and Kurt, the strongest man on the planet, could barely get me undone from that barbed wire. And finally, I fell off of the barbed wire onto the ground, and I lifted up my pant leg, and I had lit my shin open from my kneecap down almost to my ankle, and I was bleeding like a stuck pig. Well, Kurt Hennig puts me on his shoulders and carries me 3 miles back to the truck.
wow.
Drives me to the hospital, and I get all bandaged up and everything like this. And the doctor had said, "If that gentleman sitting over there wasn't with you, you would have bled to death on that fence post." And I mean, I just get choked up, talking about this all the time. And I've always called Kurt my guardian angel. And, with him passing here in Tampa, it's sort of like I let him down, and I wasn't his guardian angel at the time. But yeah, I'll never forget that as long as I live. He threw me on his shoulders, and we just boogity back to the truck. And I don't till this day don't even know if I could have walked that 3 miles bleeding as bad as I did. And he was booking it too. He was booking it. And
How long did it
God,
take you to get?
God bless him.
How long did it take you to get to those 3 miles?
We got back to the truck in probably about 35 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, he was hauling tail. He really was. And
carrying a big guy on his shoulders.
Yeah. He strapped me up there like the army carry, and he says, "Hold on, we're going." And man, it was something else. It really was.
How did you guys begin this great friendship that you had with Kurt? I mean,
We met in 1985 at a dinner in Rochester, New York, for Ken Kaiser, and they had various baseball players, and Kurt Hennig was a wrestler at the time in the AWA, I believe, and I think he was and Ken Kaiser was actually a wrestler as well, former major league umpire. He was a wrestler as well. He wrestled in the Northeast, and so he knew a lot of.
We had him as a referee a few times too.
Okay, yeah, and he would bring in wrestling guys as well, and he goes, "You got to watch out for this one guy." And I said, "Who is that?" And he says, "Man, this Kurt Hennig guy. He goes by Mr. Perfect. He's like, you got to watch out for this guy." And I said, "Oh, okay." So we sit there and start chatting, and we're sitting next to each other on the dais, and we just hit it off. And he'd never fished before, and I brought him down to the Keys, and he called it sea fishing, and he wound up catching a 10-foot, 600-pound bull shark, and he had it mounted. And I think Lanice just absolutely hated me for the rest of my life, because he's got this big bull shark in his house. And
they're ugly.
It's ugly. And he'd never been sea fishing before. And yeah, we started doing a lot of fishing together, and naturally a lot of hunting. And he'd never really hunted outside of Minnesota. And we would go to British Columbia, and we'd go to Iowa, and we'd go everywhere fishing. And he just enjoyed the outdoors. He really did.
And then how did that progress later? Because later you did the perfect skit with him, and you guys were just remained friends that whole time.
Yeah. I mean, we'd bump into each other at various events and things like this, or I'd give him a holler on the phone and said, "Hey, I'm going down to the Keys for 4 days. You want to go?" He says, "Yeah, I got to figure out how I can get out of this. Maybe I can hurt my knee in the wrestling match on Wednesday, and then I can get a little."
He was injured so much, man.
Yeah, I'm the reason that he took 4 days off quite a bit. And but
I had a charity golf tournament one time in Texas, and for like Make-A-Wish or something, and I look up the morning, and it's Kurt Hennig and Big Boss Man. They weren't invited, nothing. They just showed up on the first tee, and they go, "Can we play?" I go, "Yeah." Well, why are you here? And they said, "Well, we were in Puerto Rico. We didn't want to stay." And so they just left. They played, and after the 18th hole, they didn't go to dinner or anything. They just left. I didn't see them again for like 3 weeks. It was so surreal just to see them show up playing.
He says, "I got to do this little montage thing, and I want you to be part of it. I shoot baskets and I do everything, and I want to hit home runs." And I said, "Okay, yeah, I got to see this." Well, his second swing, it's a home run at the University of South Florida field. And the camera guy looks at me, and I went, "That's perfect." and it was the second swing. He says, "Cut, wrap, put it in the can." And I went, "Oh my God, it took him 2 swings at a home run." And I said, "You're just the biggest show off in the world, aren't you?" He says, "Well, no, I'm just perfect." And I went, "Yes, you are." I said, "Yes, you are."
He was a great athlete. I mean,
he was. Yeah.
And funny.
Wade, you know Brad Johnson, of course, the quarterback for the Bucks. Have you seen his new vignettes, his new gimmick?
No.
He goes to Big Bad Brad. And he does all the Kurt Hennig stuff. He'll shoot basket, and he's swishing.
Oh, really?
Turn the Big Bad Brad. He's doing it for a charity, of course.
I'll be darned. Wow.
He's doing everything that Kurt had, and I got a mutual friend with Brad, and I said, ask him if he got that from Kurt. And of course, I know he knows Kurt, but my friend went up to him, and he don't know a lot about Brad. He asked Brad, "Did you get that Big Bad Brad from Kurt Hennig?" "No, it's mine."
I don't know about that. I think the other one was patented. Yeah, exactly.
He's doing everything that Kurt did. Everything.
I'll be darned. Wow.
You know what's amazing about Kurt was all the ribs he pulled, and he ribbed 24 hours a day. He ribbed. Everybody loved him.
Oh yeah.
It was like Owen. Everybody just loved Kurt. No matter what he did, everybody loved him.
Yeah, I mean, the list of people that wanted to get back at Kurt was probably astronomical of how far it was. It was so funny. Another Kurt Hennig story down in the Keys. We get a 3-bedroom condo down in the Keys, and take 8 or 10 buddies down there and fish, get a couple boats and all of this. And one night we're coming back from the Duval Crawl, and Kurt he had an assortment of masks. Those are the big things that he always traveled with. He traveled with masks, and he put on this old man mask, came in and was on his knees. And he walked up to one of my buddies, TJ Ferlita, and said, and started mumbling. And my buddy jumps out of the sofa. He was laying on the sofa, jumps up from the sofa and says, "Oh my God, there's an old midget in the condo." And he's screaming like crazy at Perfect. And Perfect just played it as good as you could ever imagine. I mean, he's scared, and guys would open the door and all of a sudden said, "Oh my God, I'm calling the front desk." And he just played it off like he'd run around on his knees like a dwarf would actually run around. And I don't know how, but that mask, it was so perfect that it looked like an old dwarf that was in the condo, and he had broke in, and now he's terrorizing everybody.
Oh, I tell you, Kurt Hennig's story in the ring. He's wrestling Hillbilly Jim, and when he comes out, Kurt loved being a heel. And when he comes out, we had one fan that was Kurt Hennig's fan. He's going, "Kurt Hennig, you're the best. Hillbilly, you suck, Hillbilly. Get him, Kurt." Kurt spits out his gum, hits the fan, and it hits him in the face. And when he does, the guy looks at Kurt and goes, "You suck, Kurt. Kill him, Hillbilly." And he turns to Hillbilly and he goes, "Perfect."
Oh, that's vintage Kurt. That's vintage Kurt.
And the good thing about Kurt was, no matter what you did, as far as the rest of the boys, we had immunity because Kurt got blamed for everything.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you could pull something off, and it was like Hennig did it.
Yeah, he didn't have to be in the town, but Hennig did it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I tell you what, you put Kurt and Bobby Hennig and Bobby the Brain and the same room. Oh my goodness, that's just a recipe for something's going to happen.
I've always
Bobby
thought,
Heenan, I miss Bobby as much as anybody. Also, God, he was so wonderful.
Great guy. Yeah.
I've always thought when they talk about the greatest color commentaries, they're really arguing about who's second, because
right.
Bobby's first. There was nobody like Bobby Heenan.
Without a doubt. I mean, it and the way he could tell jokes was, and it was like he'd save them up for a year, and you wouldn't see him in 10 or 11 months, and he'd start reeling them all off. And it's like, okay, I just saved all of these up for Boggs. So it was like, okay, I got these, and oh yeah, he could hold court. He really could.
Wade, when I've always thought, one of the reasons the wrestlers back in the day, had so many ribs and so much stuff, because we didn't have internet, we didn't have cell phones. You guys didn't either, and you guys had just like we did. You guys had the dog days of August where you're in one city and you're going the next, 3 hours, 4 hours out in the sun every day. We're in Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, one after another. It had to be very much the same, right? You guys just at some point get
that was our entertainment. That was our entertainment. We didn't have Nintendo and all of that. And guys nowadays, they go on the road and they got all these giant suitcases full of Nintendo, and they have Nintendo games all night. And then they sleep all day and go to the yard. And back in the we didn't carry our Xbox around or anything like that. We just play practical jokes on everybody and see where they wound up. And that was when you get baseball players and wrestlers together in the same venue, like at Buckmasters or something like that, I'm telling you, it can get kind of the guy that takes the brunt of it is a Jeff Foxworthy, and because we know how to handle ourselves, and yeah, I remember when Steiner picked me up, was going to throw me in the stinking pond. And boy, did I beg him not to throw me in the pond. And I think it was about 38 degrees that day. And we were doing all the obstacle course stuff. And we'd have various events. We'd have obstacle course, knife throwing, hatchet throwing, and all of these different things. And Steiner's sitting there and he picks me up, and I went, oh my God, he's going to throw me in the stinking pond. And thank God he didn't, because it was, like I said, it was 38 degrees, and all the wrestlers are out there, and really the baseball players wanted to stay away from them, because it was like, okay, they're gonna throw you in the pond. And then we got baseball players against the wrestlers, and that wouldn't have lasted very long. Believe me, that wouldn't have lasted very long, because the wrestlers would have just decimated all the baseball players. So.
Well, especially we had Rick Steiner. We didn't need much else. That was not all we needed.
Yeah, I mean, when Rick picked me up, it was like, oh my God, here we go. And I think all the other guys, Chipper, and the only guy that could probably hold our own would have been Bo Jackson. But
Yes.
Bo was there a couple times. Yeah, he's a strong son of a gun too. I'm telling you, he could pick up Rick Steiner and and Big Boss Man and hold his own with those guys. But yeah, it was and then you got what was funny is the guys that worked around the lodge and various things like that. We'd be in the kitchen or something telling stories, and you'd look and there'd be 10 guys in the hallway listening to all the stories. And I mean, it was a story after story after story. And all these guys that worked around there were sitting there. I mean, they got their fill of all the stories from all the great wrestlers that we had and the baseball players. That's for sure.
Yeah, like I said earlier, if somebody had been wise enough to have a camera at the event.
Jerry, it was insane. You had these legendary baseball players, these Hall of Famers. You had these legendary wrestlers, these Hall of Famers, some legendary country singers who were on tour also. Who had all kinds of stories.
Yeah,
Aaron
Tippin. Yeah, Aaron Tippin and John Anderson and Eddie Reisner and oh my gosh. I mean, you could just go on and on and on. And then when you put in all the guys at the height of their wrestling, they were there. And then you got batting champs and MVPs and baseball and all of this. And it was, and on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday were the two events. And I mean, we'd have close to 10, 12,000 people just show up and watch all the events. And, you know, signing autographs and doing all of that good stuff. But yeah, it was a great event. It really was. Jackie Bushman put on a good show for the fans.
So Wade, I got to ask you, because one thing you're legendary about, like Andre the Giant, you may be the greatest Major League Baseball beer drinker of all time, which is something. So the cross country stories about you, are they true?
Well, I did Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And they sort of tried to recreate going from Boston to LA, and yeah, all the stories are true. Yeah, they're all true, and so the record was 73, but I don't know if
73 beers in a cross country flight.
Yeah, I don't know if I could have kept up with Andre though. I heard Andre was the king. I'll take number 2 to Andre. That's for sure.
I experienced with Andre, and I've experienced with you too. And I tell you, both of you are pretty damn salty.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jerry.
Both of you have caused me to miss flights at Atlanta.
Well, there you go. There you go. I've got that on the resume now, so that's good.
Wait, I saw an interview we did one time with Tony Gwynn, and the way you guys threw 3,000 hitters, 2 great hitters, both 4 times straight, like we mentioned, batting champions. Not only a few people in the history of baseball had done that, but the way you talk about hitting was completely different. You're very analytical. Tony was just, I get up and hit what I see. Is that fair?
I think it is to a certain degree. I tried to keep it as simple as I could, and mechanical. I think nowadays guys get too consumed with watching video and not really trusting their body, trusting the God-given talent that they have, and the over analytics that they have nowadays with the launch angle and exit velocity and various things like this is, in order to keep it simple, it's see ball, hit ball. And that was one of the reasons why. I mean, I would look for spin, and having 2012 eyesight, Ted Williams had 2010, but having 2012 eyesight, I could pick up spin on the baseball. I could see a dot for a slider, the tumble for the fork ball, change of elevation for a curve ball, and then make an adjustment in less than 0.04 of a second and figure out how I wanted to put a swing on this baseball. For 11 years, I had the great luxury of having the wall in Fenway Park, and come to find out after 18 years in the big leagues that I had the highest average at Fenway Park, 368, and Ted Williams had 363. So when you sit there and look at those numbers, and in my opinion, the greatest hitter that ever lived is Ted Williams, without a doubt. But just having that safety net, comfort blanket, or whatever you wanted to call the wall over there, just made me that much better. And everyone said, oh, he'll never hit 300 if he leaves Boston and all of that. Well, I proved them wrong when I went to New York, and the highest I hit in New York was 342. But it was no, I don't try to. And everyone goes, well, do you guess? And I said, well, if a guy has 4 pitches and you guess, you have a 75% chance of being wrong on whether or not, okay, I'm guessing slider and he throws a fastball. I'm guessing fork ball. He's going to throw a curve ball. I'm guessing changeup and he throws a fastball right by you. And coaching high school baseball here in Tampa for 21 years, that was the approach that I would just tell these young kids. I said, just see the ball, put a good swing on it, and everything else will take care of itself. And just use your God-given ability to take over once you see the baseball. And you look at Major League Baseball right now, guys swing at balls in the dirt, and you can tell that they've never, ever picked up the baseball out of the hand. I mean, they just start swinging, and all of a sudden the ball bounces, and it almost looks like they're playing cricket. That the ball bounces in front of home plate, and then they do the old one hop and hit the ball off the ground. But I think a lot of times nowadays guys just overanalyze too much about the swing. Find a swing that works for you, and that's some of the difficulty of a hitting instructor is when you have 14 guys with different swings, you have to sort of cultivate and grow each one of those. And believe me, hitting is not like you clone hitters and say this is the only way to do it. Hitters are like fingerprints; they're all different, and everybody has their own start mechanism and their own and verbiage too. I mean, a lot of guys, you sit there and start talking about hitting and start talking about impact zone and carrying your length through the baseball and all this, and they look at you like you're talking Chinese arithmetic. And you just try to keep it basic for these guys and know their strengths. That was the thing when I was a hitting instructor for Tampa Bay. You got to know the guy's strengths, and when you find out their strengths and their weaknesses, then you sort of overcompensate and work on their weakness to sort of get that up, not as good as their strengths, but just to where that they can get by.
I doubt they'd ever tried against you, but what would you think about the shift?
Oh, I'd hit 500.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we'd go into New York, and Wayne Tollison, a shortstop for the Yankees, we'd go into New York, and I'd walk up to the plate, and he'd be over in the hole at shortstop. Well, I hit the ball up the middle, and then next at bat, he'd go up the middle, and I hit the ball in the hole at shortstop. And I saw him at a golf tournament a few years later, and he says, one question I've always wanted to ask you: do you watch me? And I said, absolutely. Why do you think I got so many hits against New York? You go up the middle, I hit it in the hole. You go over in the hole, I hit it up the middle. And it blows my mind that you put all these guys on one side of the field, and if they let the ball travel a little bit, they can hit the ball the other way. I don't know if they're too stubborn or basically what their gimmick is, but those are scenarios that I mean, it's pretty simple. If you got a hole over on the other side of the field that you could drive the Queen Mary through, oh my goodness, really? It's just it's really probably the hardest thing to do is play straight up, because all the holes are covered. Then you can't make a mistake and hit through the other side of the infield. And we were in Minnesota one time. This is probably one of my best shift stories, is that Ray Miller, the manager for the Twins, said, came up to the batting cage before the game and said, Wade, we finally figured you out. And I went, oh, okay. All right. I'm looking forward to this. And in actuality, Kenny Kaiser was the home plate umpire that day. And so I walk up, and Chuck Knobloch and Greg Gagne are standing behind second base. And shortstop and second base are open. And I went, what is going on here? So I took a pitch. Well, when I took a pitch, one of them would run to their position. So I went, oh, this is going to be fun. I went 5 for 5 that day. Whoever didn't move, I just hit the ball in the hole where whoever didn't move. So I went 5 for 5, and I'm standing on first base. Ray Miller walks out in front of the dugout and tips his cap to me. And I went, boy, that was probably the easiest 5 for 5 that I could ever accomplish, because whoever didn't move, the hole was open. So I see the shortstop take off. I pull the ball. I see the second baseman take off. I just hit the ball the other way. So it was 5 for 5 that day. And it was one of those. But yeah, I sit there and I look at these shifts, and it just blows me away when they have the overhead view of where all these guys stand. And I understand that guys, they sit there and they're pretty well mapped out when they draw up where a guy hits the ball. If I'm one of those guys that leads to hitting the ball in a certain area, I'm going to have some extra batting practice early in the day and work on hitting the ball the other way, just to show people that I can. And then that'll take everything back to square one and make them put guys on the other side of the field. But, they put everybody on one side of the field, and the guy will hit a rocket into short right field, and a guy standing right there and throw him out of first base. And, now they want to ban the shift. But if you're dumb enough to hit it into the shift, then you deserve what you get, I guess.
Did you were a great defensive ball player too, not only offensive. You're over 3,000 hits. How would you play the shift now, or would you resist it a little bit, or what would be your philosophy nowadays? What if you had to do that?
Well, the thing about it is if I was, would they move me from third to short, put the shortstop on the other side of the field, or use me from third and put me as a rover with a left-handed hitter in right field? I really wouldn't. I don't know where I would wind up in that scenario. Probably the rover in short right field or what have you. But they're trying to do in banning it is keep all the infielders on the infield dirt, and rather than guys in short right field, and you got a right fielder, and then you got your center fielder in right center, and then you got your left fielder over in center field. So that's probably the scenario that it would be.
I've been requested by Kevin Sullivan, as you know, a lifelong Red Sox fan. And I don't know if he would rib me on this question. So when I ask this question, it's coming from Kevin, and it could be one of those wrestlers' rib that he wanted me to. I don't know. He asked me to ask you a question about your hitting at Fenway. He said they put, he gave me the even date when they put the announcer's position down right above home plate. Did that happen, or did that change your hitting or anything? Or do you even know what I'm talking about?
No, actually what it was is when they built, I called it the dog track. I don't know if you've ever been to Derby Lane or anything. You know that big monstrosity of a building where everybody sits behind and watches the dogs go around? Yeah. Well, when they redid the confirmation of, or the formation of I think it was the Pier 1 Club or the one of these clubs, to where it was a private club. They built it up. Well, it would form downdrafts coming over it. Well, I would hit a fly ball to left field, and when they finished building all of this, it would knock the ball down. Well, I had mentioned this in the paper, and the formation of how high it was formed downdrafts coming over that. And they said, well, we'll get people in here that know what they're doing. And then I said, and they brought in a guy, actually, I think 3 or 4 years ago from MIT, and they did a wind study, and it was true. So I took all this ribbon in the paper when I was there that Boggs doesn't know what he's talking about. And I said, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I said, yeah, when you hit a fly ball to left field, it knocks it down a little bit. And it took a little bit more to carry it. But they've done a remarkable job of remodeling Fenway Park. I was so happy that they didn't tear it down like all the other great cathedrals that have been around Major League Baseball. They've remodeled it, and you wouldn't even know she's 110 years old. It was one of those great parks that they kept intact.
Is that your favorite park? I would assume it is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was, when you walk out and that wall just jumps on you. And I mean, my first time walking into Fenway Park and coming out of the home dugout on first base and seeing how close the wall was, I said, man, I just need to get a little bit stronger, and I can start wearing that wall out a little bit.
Did you have a great relationship with, or what kind of relationship did you have with Ted Williams?
Spectacular. And till this day, I kick myself, and I think about it daily, that I never asked him to go bone fishing. And this is one of the things that really has driven me nuts, that I had so many opportunities to just say, hey, Ted, let's go bone fishing down the Keys in the off season. And I'm sure he would have jumped on it. But once Ted passed, and Kurt Gowdy and myself laid a reef down in Nila Mirada for Ted, I said, I'm not going to make that mistake again. One of Ted's fishing buddies was Kurt Gowdy. And I said, I'm going to ask Kurt to go fishing with me. And he accepted. I didn't say a word the whole day on the boat. He talked about Ted the whole time, and it was just an absolute wonderful trip. And I'm so glad I did, because if I would have asked Ted, it would have been the same way. I wouldn't have been able to get a word in edgewise with Ted. And probably if you don't fly fish and cast the way that Ted thinks you should, he's going to let you know it. He's going to let you know it, because he's not only in the Baseball Hall of Fame, but Ted's in the Fishing Hall of Fame, and just an absolute expert angler.
I assume Ted's your favorite ball player of all time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I got a lot of Ted stuff in the house. And when he passed away, he in his will, I've got his shotgun and fly rod and reel and case and all of that.
That's awesome.
And so I've got some neat personal items from Ted, and it was just it was a treat to be around him.
He lived right down in Lake Wells area, right? Or
It's Citrus Hills on the West Coast. Yeah, for quite a while. And the Ted Williams Hitters Museum it was a spectacle, and they dissolved it once they moved it to Tropicana Field. But yeah, it was kind of one of those things that if you're really into baseball, that was one of those museums that had everything under the planet. It really did.
Ty Cobb famously, who had the split grip, which funny because he had the great batting average. Nobody's tried it really since. They said something to him one day about not hitting home runs, and he hit a couple home runs that day. And his point was, I could if I wanted to. If you wanted to, could you have hit more than you hit? Were you so concentrated on, I'm going to hit the ball here, I'm going to hit the ball there, and you were so good at placing the ball? I mean, you're one of the greatest hitter of my lifetime. But if you wanted to, would you have hit more home runs? It
wasn't a point of wanting to. It was a point of when I getting back to see ball, hit ball, and recognizing spin, I wouldn't hit the ball in front of the plate. I would let it get deep onto the plate, and I would work from right center to left center in the biggest part of the field. Those close to 600 doubles that I hit, half of those were probably in Fenway Park. And had I played my whole career in Wrigley, the balls high off the wall in Fenway Park are home runs at Wrigley. But it wasn't in 87, I hit 24. And it wasn't that, wow, I think I'm going to try to do this all the time. I went to spring training in 88, and I think I was hitting a $125, getting close to the end of spring training, trying to duplicate that same swing that I had the year before. And it just wouldn't work. I was popping the ball up and really couldn't hit a line drive. And it took almost 3 weeks, the beginning of 88, into the season, to get back that line drive stroke. And I mean, when you talk about that gets to the launch angle, and guys that hit home runs hit the ball in the front part of the impact zone, which is creating launch angle, and the bat's on its way up. I wanted to keep my hands above the baseball and create that swing to where I would drive the ball into the alleys, but really didn't hit a lot of high fly balls. And coincidentally, in 87 was the year that I hit a lot of high fly balls, and hence the 24 home runs that I hit in 87. But oh, sure, I would have loved to have been a home run hitter with 365 average and 30 homers. I mean, I could have probably gotten paid a little bit more, but other than that, no, it wasn't a conscious effort, because I'll take a home run as much as I take a line drive into the gap or something. No, it wasn't a conscious effort.
Taking what was given you.
Right. It wasn't a conscious effort to sit there and say, I'm not going to hit a home runs. I'm just going to hit for average. Because in 87, I hit 368 with 24 home runs. So it wasn't that I sacrificed my average to hit home runs. In actuality, the average went up.
Wade, we're huge baseball fans. My question is, you all hit slumps. Well, hit a slump. What'd you just do? Go back to the basic, or did you change anything when you hit a slump and trying to come out of it?
I asked the greatest hitter on the planet, how do you get out of a slump? And I don't think Ted had ever been in one. But we were sitting around spring training one time, and it was just me and him on the bench out on the field in Winter Haven. And I said, Ted, if you were to ever get in a slump, how would you get out of it? He says, Boggsy, try to knock the hat off of the pitcher. And I went, wow, that's as basic as you could ever imagine. And I was on about a 2 for 27, 2 for 26, and we were in Minnesota. And it came to me, my first at bat, try to knock the pitcher's hat off. And I'll be darned if I didn't hit the pitcher in the head, knocked his hat off, and went on about another 20 for 30 run. And it sealed the deal right there.
Did you tell Ted that you'd done it?
Oh, absolutely. I said, it worked.
It worked.
That's awesome. Well, Wade, I know you got to go pick up your grandkids. We could talk to you all day. We're huge baseball fans. We're huge.
I appreciate it.
Huge Wade Boggs fans. We've been friends a long time and good friends.
We got to get together. Brother. It's
love to get together.
Since the baseball season started, we've had Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer. As soon as baseball started, Wade Boggs popped in my mind. I said, John, we got to get Wade on here. It just ties in with their baseball season starting. The Hall of Fame was just held and everything. And man, we appreciate your time so much. And thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Love you guys. It's been great.
Love you too, brother.
All right. See you down the road.